The only thing worse than a filler flashback episode is a forced crossover episode, but maybe the Simpson family is entertaining enough to survive a collab with another beloved TV crew, or maybe things will just be weird and awkward.
Oh, don't mention her eye, don't mention her eye.
Don't mention her hair, don't mention her hair.
Aye.
The Simpsons' iconic family couch turns into the hedonism bot from Futurama. While the rest of the family are freaked out by this encounter, Homer decides to traumatize his wife and kids by taking full advantage of the couch robot. It doesn't take long for things to get disturbing and slightly concerning. The Springfield Elementary School is once again trying its best to make sure that future generations will remember the school in some sort of a positive light. This is why the school is hosting another time capsule event, and all of the students are encouraged to bring in items that they want to be remembered by. Nelson brings a photo of his father who went out for milk and never came back. Milhouse throws in his lucky rabbit foot, but quickly learns that he can't afford to let go of the last vestige of his luck. Principal Skinner then turns towards Bart, and he has already assumed that Bart failed to bring in anything. Skinner is correct, because Bart is forced to improvise, and he pulls out a diseased sandwich to throw into the time capsule, before letting the thing rot in a box for centuries. Bart makes sure to blow his nose into the sandwich so that his DNA can travel far and wide.
Better make this count.
The time capsule ceremony goes underway, and the mayor decides to dig into the ground, but as soon as they start digging, toxic-looking sludge comes out of the ground, and everyone knows there is only one man responsible for turning the ground into a vat of radioactive waste. The people of the city still look past this minor setback and decide to bury the time capsule within this hazardous area. Surely nothing bad will come of it. The ceremony comes to an end when a mysterious electric storm interrupts the program, and thankfully stops Lisa's jazz performance just in time. Back at home, the family is seated in front of the TV, watching the news on this freak storm. All of a sudden, the house gets zapped by something and the sound of someone falling from the sky can be heard. Homer and the rest of the family try to pretend like everything is okay, but deep down, they know that something strange has occurred. Later at night, while Homer is miraculously reading in bed, Marge tells her husband to check the strange noises coming from their basement. Homer is forced to investigate the matter, and Bart joins him. The father and son are scared shitless, and neither of them want to go down, so Homer tries to get their faithful little dog to do his job and protect the house. But when he fails, Homer decides to risk the life of his only son.
We'll have to set a trap, Bart.
Bart now being used as bait. Homer thinks that he can really catch whatever is moving around in the basement. Homer waits in a corner as a shadowy figure emerges. This figure looks at Bart, but then immediately turns towards Homer's precious beer supply, and no dignified man would let someone else touch his beer. So, Homer ends up whacking the intruder, and it turns out that the one making all the noise is Bender, the beloved robot from Futurama. Homer and Bender somehow end up whacking Bart around, but when things calm down, Bender reveals that he is from the future. Homer needs little convincing to believe the robot he just met 5 minutes ago, and soon he takes Bender to Moe's Tavern. It doesn't take long for Bender to be accepted into the group. After all, he is just a metallic version of Homer's drunk and lazy personality, but Moe still needs the guy to pay up for the drink. And Bender uses his futuristic mumbo-jumbo to pretend like he is paying for the drinks, which makes Homer and the rest of the guys even more warm towards the cold robot.
Let me just transfer some electronic hypercredits into your register here. Ding it.
Homer realizes that he wants to officially ask this strange robot to become his friend. The two of them are definitely kindred spirits, and soon Bender is hanging out with the guys like he is one of them. Back at home, Homer and Bender even nap together, which makes even Lisa and Bart convinced that maybe the robot and Homer were designed by the same guy. But more importantly, Lisa refuses to believe that Bender is from the future. So she takes the guy to the local nerdy scientist, John Fink. Fink takes a look at Bender and realizes that just by simply unplugging the robot and then replugging him back, Bender can remember why he was sent into the past. And of course, this age-old strategic method works. And Bender can finally recall his very important mission. He needs to kill Homer Simpson.
I remember why I'm here. To kill Homer Simpson.
As soon as Bender sees Homer, the robot unleashes his arsenal of very common weapons, and Homer is incredibly hurt by this sudden display of violence. This entire time, Homer thought that the two of them had a bromance going on, but that does not seem to be the case. All of a sudden, Bender gets a message from other notable Futurama cast members, Leela, Fry, and Professor Farnsworth. Leela wants to know if Bender has managed to kill Homer, but she is pissed off to learn that instead of killing Homer, Bender has grown attached to the obese man. It seems like some sort of mutant rabbits have taken over over New York, and their DNA has a match with Homer. This is why Bender was sent to kill Homer. Farnsworth is disappointed that the so-called heartless robot actually turned out to have feelings and failed to do his job.
Apparently this was too heartless a task for a robot.
The professor then sends Leela to finish the job, and the Futurama crew ends up arriving in the world of The Simpsons as well, while Professor Farnsworth tries to figure out how to stop the mutant rabbits from evolving. Homer spends his time explaining the beautiful concept of free games with hidden purchases. Homer and the Futurama crew walk around town, while Homer yaps about how these free games latch on like a leech, and the player ends up paying thousands of dollars for fake digital goods.
Why, I owe Clash of Candies $20,000. Here we are.
Homer then ends up taking the crew to his house, where Leela has an awkward first meeting with Marge. Meanwhile, Fink, Farnsworth, and Lisa are still working on trying to figure out where exactly the rabbit bunnies emerge from. As this research continues, Homer and Bender have grown closer together, a little too close by normal standards. Even Marge is worried about what she's seeing. But thankfully, Farnsworth has figured out that the DNA in the evil rabbits only belongs to Homer partly. The other half of the DNA belongs to Marge, which means that the blame lies on one of the two children. Before Bart and Lisa are killed, Bender receives a news update from the future. The rabbits have further evolved into green goblins, which look exactly like Bart. No one is surprised that Bart is the one responsible. It turns out that Bart's sandwich with his germs somehow interacted with Milhouse's rabbit foot, and the toxic sludge was the cherry on top. All of this resulted in the future being overrun by little Bart goblins. Lisa realizes that all they have to do now is to dig up the time capsule. This will ensure that Bart's germs don't destroy humanity in the future, even though the entire gang is almost on the verge of putting an end to this misery. Bender receives another message which shows the goblins destroying the portal in the future. This causes the Simpsons and the Futurama crew to be sucked into the future.
Okay, head count. 1, 2, 3.
However, Maggie and Bender are still left in the past, and the zesty robot decides to take advantage of this opportunity by hitting the horse track. While Maggie has fun with Bender, Homer and the rest of the family need to deal with Bart's handiwork.
Why, you little... Why, you little... Why, you little... Why, you little...
Marge wants to return home as soon as possible, and she believes that Homer can help them get back home by repairing the generator. Has Marge seriously forgotten that her husband can't even see his own toes? Farnsworth decides to make peace with his death, and it seems like everyone has accepted that they are doomed. Lisa hates this loser attitude, and she urges everyone to stop acting like nothing can be done. Farnsworth proposes that they can try shooting the creatures into space. And apparently, Lisa also has just the method to round up the little gremlins. Because if there is anyone who can manipulate Bart, Lisa is the one for the job.
If there's one thing I know how to do, it's manipulate Bart.
With the plan in motion, Lisa lures the Bart goblins to a giant cube by promising the gremlins that the space is filled with Butterfingers. This simple lie does the trick, and all the Bart clones make their way towards the cube. Once the goblins have been rounded up, Farnsworth and the others lift up the cube and fly off into space. The cube is then blasted off into the endless void, and everyone celebrates this ridiculous victory, although Bart laments the loss of his small army.
You realize you're cheering the death of millions of my children.
Now that the crisis has finally been solved, the portal is also fixed, and the Simpson family finally goes back to their own time. Now that Bender's mission is over, he needs to get back to the future as well. But unlike his friends, Bender will have to sleep for 1,000 years. The robot decides to rest up in the Simpsons' basement, and Homer pours out a beer one last time for his strange friend. But speaking of different times, this reminds me of the time we saw the family in the times of the Roman Empire. If you want to know what happens, check this video next, but not before you leave your like and subscription.